So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending today's session. We've got Angel Aviles, our customer success manager for Modern Communications, who's going to talk about supporting hybrid work in today's workforce and office. It seems like with the pandemic, a lot has changed, and the technology has improved to help support you and your organization. So with that being said, I'll hand it over to Angel.
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? So today we're going to go through and we're going to discuss, how we can leverage hybrid work, what we're seeing in the field and studies around hybrid work, and what Microsoft's vision for hybrid work is and how you can leverage it in your organization. So let's take a closer look at a work trek index that was just published of more than 30,000 people in 31 countries. 73% of workers say they want flexible remote work options at the same time. 67% of employees tell us that they want more in-person collaboration with their teams post-pandemic. And we've also learned that about 80% of managers say they expect more flexible work from home policies post-pandemic. So what we're seeing here is that employees are saying they want more flexible remote work options, but at the same time, they're also saying they want more in-person collaboration. And this is what has been known as the hybrid work paradox. So our CEO Satya Nadella has really refocused the company into looking at how can we resolve this paradox? How can we take and remove technology as the blocker, but make the technology as the enabler to allow people to have the flexible work environments, which if a lot of you have been on the digital transformation experience, that was one of the key things with the original M365, O365 uh, tagline around work where your machine is, not necessarily where your office is. So now the pandemic has really forced us to really look at that and really develop a way to allow people to collaborate really from anywhere, but at the same time to still keep that feeling of the collaboration have when you're with somebody in the same space. The other thing is, of course, everything becomes more complex, not less complex when you come into hybrid work. And that's something that we're probably all experiencing today. When you're in an office environment, you have a lot of control in the environment, a lot of control of security, a lot of control on the network. And when we go out into the field or when we begin to work remotely, that becomes more of a challenge, that centralized control, that centralized organization. So we have to essentially, as organizations, adapt to this new environment where people can really work from anywhere and to allow for that flexibility that these employees want, as well as to allow for that rich collaboration experience, make sure that we're doing it in a secure and still way that we can audit and make sure that we're meeting the compliance standards of the organization. So to compete in this new hybrid world and why we're on this conversation is to embrace this new concept of extreme flexibility. The pandemic basically forced us to be extremely flexible, to look at ways that we thought we wouldn't operate um, and are now the new normal. This idea of being able to work from anywhere, have the flexibility to work in the office, to collaborate at home and make it seamless between the two spaces. And this really leads to kind of a new operational model when we look at it. And when we look at things from HR to IT to marketing, sales, manufacturing, every function needs to come together and reimagine how to empower these employees and engage customers, optimize operations, and transform, in this case, a lot of people in state and local government, transform how we service our customers, which are constituents within the organization. And when we look at that, we look at it in three succinct buckets. So you have people. So That's the that's one of the things that Microsoft has really been focused on. And when we look at it, we look at how do the people, where do they work, what do they do, where are the places that they work, and what are the processes that they use in their daily work, and how that can become accessible and be collaborative for both people who are in the office space as well as those who are remote. And this is essentially what we're looking to help you do as organizations, is essentially look at these models and help adopt these models into your organizations to help you guys achieve these asks that you're getting from your customers around having the ability to have a flexible work environment. So let's start with people. So we already know from the pandemic that people can get things done at home. They don't have to be in a physical space. This was kind of probably the greatest experiment in modern work history, where we're actually taking traditional models like government that have traditionally been an on presence in place organization, and allowed people to work really from anywhere, including home. So part of this is you want to empower your people to thrive in a flexible work environment. So you have to rethink how you empower your managers, how you create a culture that supports that, and how you reimagine the employee experience in this new world. When you look at Microsoft, Microsoft traditionally from the very beginning has been a practice of a mobile, flexible workspace, especially for folks like myself and Tony that are in the field. We don't even have a physical workplace. We work from home, we work from the field, we basically work from hotel rooms, mobile offices, you name it. And what Microsoft has done, especially since the pandemic, is they've really spread that concept to all 160,000 employees around the world. It allows them to give them greater choice on when, where, and how they work. What it's allowed us to do is it's allowed us to have this flexible work approach. It gives the employees to work from an office if they desire, to work from home. And up to 50% of the time, what we found is that this flexible work environment actually makes the employee more productive. So essentially, when they have the flexibility to work from home, work from the office space, it gives them the flexibility to have better work-life balance, and essentially allows the employee to work and be more productive, in that they can go into the office when they need to, be at home when they need to, tend to tasks that maybe they have to do within their personal life, but also be able to have the flexibility to work really from anywhere to complete those tasks that are required by the organization. In doing so, we've created a hybrid flexibility guide, which we'll talk about here, which basically allows for our employees at Microsoft really to have a guideline on how to work in this hybrid environment, and managers how to manage in this hybrid environment. And we've actually published that and released it so that our customers can also look at how Microsoft's doing it, and how Microsoft has put in some best practices to assure that they have the flexibility but the productivity of the people who are working in this flexible environment. So when we look at three dimensions of the hybrid workplace, we look at the work site, the work location, and the work hours. And we assume there's going to be a mix of these three variables. So based on working with a manager, there may be flexibility in the work site. So what we've seen a lot of customers do is they'll have a policy where a person can work home maybe 2 to 3 times a week, and then be in the office the rest of the time. They may have the ability to have flexible work hours. So they'll be able, for example, to work from 9 a.m. to noon, and then maybe they have something they have to do from noon to 1, and then be able to come back later in the day and complete that, maybe start in the office and then continue to work from home. But of course, every organization will have a unique approach to these three variables. and how they manage these variables. And it may be by organization, there may be policies you put in place at the organization level, as well as each manager may choose to have their own policies around how to balance these three assets. So one of the key things that what Microsoft has done is, of course, we want to empower managers to lead the shift. So a lot of people will look to their managers and ask their managers on the ability to support a hybrid work environment. So what we've done is we've put into a lot of our software the ability to have decision-making authority tools and skills and skilling to allow managers to empower their employees to have a flexible work environment, flexible work schedules, but at the same time give them the tools to be able to properly manage and be properly work with the organization in this flexible work environment. For instance, managers can have the authority through a lot of our frontline tools to approve when individuals can work from home, or if you're incorporating like a 50% corporate policy where it's 50% work from home, 50% work from home, 50% work from the office, they can go ahead and they can put those requests into the tools, or you could imagine a group calendar through our frontline tool, which again allows users to submit those requests to the managers and allows the manager to have an automated workflow or an approval system to do so. They can also have workflows to authorize new office equipment purchases for their teams. So to enable them with things like webcams, speakers, mics, so that they have the ability to effectively work from home. And then to really work on developing new team-specific organization-wide boards. So one of the big things is within Microsoft, and probably you guys are experiencing this a lot in your organizations, is this concept of meeting fatigue, right? That people will meet, and they'll be on meeting, and then by the end of the day they're wiped because they've been on meetings all day. They haven't had time to look at their emails, so now they're looking at their emails at the end of the day. So there's things like, for example, saying no meeting Fridays, where essentially Friday is a day for users to look and catch up on work, prepare for big milestones that they may be working on, and not be on meetings. Or to encourage other tools like the collaboration you have in a team channel or chat to be able to work tasks out within the organization versus having a meeting and bringing everybody together. So those are some of the things that you look at when you're looking to build this, to incorporate new norms so that we don't have people scheduling meetings for every little thing and having fatigue, and learn to adopt the tools and processes that are available to them to leverage their work versus just doing the more traditional, you always have to talk to somebody live or have to call somebody or video chat somebody, but actually use more of the traditional chat mechanisms and team collaboration to do so. And again, that allows you to embrace that flexibility, allows people to use the tools that are in place to have that flexibility and not have to have all this real-time culture that you traditionally see in an on-premise environment. So at the core of that, of course, is Microsoft Teams. So when you look at Microsoft Teams as a platform to enable that hybrid model, you look at all the capabilities that it has. It's a meeting platform. So for example, today we're having a meeting on Microsoft Teams, but at the same time, I have my chat and collaboration platform. So if users need to reach out to me or we need to have conversations on while during the meeting, you have those chat capabilities. It has a full calling platform, which I know some of our organizations have embraced, including the voice platform with the PSTN connectivity, the rich collaboration platform, so the ability to upload, co-author, work on documents in real time together. Some of the stuff we're doing with some of the new Fluid components, and some of the new tools that we announced at Ignite that allows for that cross collaboration across multiple Microsoft 365 components. And then there's the automation. You have Power Automate, Power BI, Flow, all those things that allow you to build and enable rich reporting, as well as automated tasks through the Teams application, as well as build line of business applications directly within the Microsoft Teams infrastructure. Another major component that you probably heard of is our Viva component. So a lot of people have asked, well, what is Viva? And what does Viva do? So Viva is embracing, again, the second component of what you think of when you think of a hybrid work environment, and that's the well-being of the employee. So what a lot of people have observed in the new hybrid work environment is almost a burnout. Essentially, they're in front of their computers all day. They're looking at constant content, constant meetings, constant calls, and essentially, it tends to isolate people, so they feel isolated in that they're kind of all working in their individual workspaces, and it also leads to some burnout. So with Viva, what we saw is kind of the reimagining of how people connect in this new hybrid work environment. And there's some key applications that exist within Viva to really help remote users really manage their work-life balance. It allows for insights to be gathered and shared among people who are in the office and people who are remote, as well as it helps with learning, education, as well as provides a centralized portal where people can kind of see what's going on in the organization in a more controlled, formatted way versus what you would technically see in a organizational wide channel. So there's a couple of tools here that exist within the Viva stack. There's Connections, which I think a lot of people have started looking at, this ability to have a centralized portal that people can go to and connect and see what's going on with the organization. Insights, which gives you organizational insight to managers. This is probably or leadership. This is important to look at those perspectives. A lot of people have started looking at the learning platform. So again, we use the learning platform here to be able to manage, both our personal growth as well as, key learnings that we have to do and skilling throughout the year. And then we have our topics, which again is again a nice way of connecting and sharing topical information on the platform. So first, let's look at Viva Connections. So Viva Connections, when you think about it, it's bringing together that one-to-one and many-to-one communications to keep everybody engaged and informed. I'll go ahead here, and this is actually...
Connections is customized for your organization and personalized for you. It includes a feed of relevant news, conversations, announcements, and company events, so you're always in the know. And, as you would expect, the same Viva Connections experience is also available and optimized for mobile. It also provides a dashboard connecting you to company resources and tools, so you can more easily do things like submit a health check before going into the office, submit a pending expense claim, or book time off. Viva Connections can also be customized for every role. Here's an example for a retail cashier, giving them the ability to clock in directly in the dashboard. Viva Connections is the company app designed to keep everyone connected and engaged.
So you can see there what the real power of the Connections tool is, and that is, again, allowing people to have that centralized portal to get information on what's going on in the organization, as well as being able to take some key processes that occur within the organization and centralizing them into a place where users can access those key resources based on their role. Viva Insights. This is one of the powerful things with Teams and the M365 platform is a lot of the AI technology that runs behind there, and it begins to gather data and really conform data into insights that allow both yourself as well as managers in your organization to really see how the organization, how the individual is performing. as well as the individual itself. I know one of the things that's great with Insights is, showing me, the ability of how am I using my free time, giving me recommendations on how I can better use my time, to better work and be more efficient within my organization. But it allows you to again gain that insights, look at individuals, help improve work habits. For the manager side, it helps proactively engage teams, to risk burnout and develop more sustainable work practices. So this is a great way of developing that work, the hybrid work practices that we talked about earlier, is through tools like Viva Insight.
This is the Viva Insights homepage. Viva Insights helps you work smarter and thrive with personalized reminders such as prioritizing time for focused work to help you block time for uninterrupted work, coaching time for one-on-one time with your manager, and helping you create the space in your busy schedule to prioritize learning. It also recommends regular breaks with meditation apps such as Headspace and to mindfully wrap the end of your workday with a virtual commute. For managers, insights are available on the My Team page. These insights help managers foster healthy, successful teams. Let's click on the Employee Experience page. Here, a manager can see if their team is at risk of burnout and view a recommended plan to see tips and ideas, and also start a plan to help employees develop healthy work habits and feel balanced. Let's jump over to the My Org page to see Leader Insights. It provides insights across a broad set of business outcomes ranging from organizational resilience, employee engagement, meeting culture, customer focus, and much more.
So you can see where this would be helpful, especially as you're beginning to develop a new hybrid work environment. It allows you to, again, get that insight as a person who is working remotely to make sure they're taking the appropriate time to take breaks, to be able to manage their day, manage their tasks, as well as to have appropriate wrap up. So instead of, just like when we commuted at the end of the day, we had that time in our car to kind of think about the day, to set aside time to do the same thing as you end your day within your remote work from home experience. And then from the organizational side, being able to look at things like, well, are my people working way too much? Are they working after hours? Am I going to start seeing burnout? And even give you recommendations on how you can work with your organization to have that better work-life balance, which again, as we all know, when we work from home is a challenge to pull away properly from working from home and then, having your personal work home experience. Viva Learning is key, is another great element to have. So when we look at education, I know a lot of people in the IT field have skilling, but a lot of different people within the field may have standard skilling that they need to do throughout the year, as well as this is through things like LinkedIn with LinkedIn Learning, allows them for personal development. So when you think about employees wanting to grow their skill sets, wanting to be able to learn new skills, Viva Learning allows them how not only basic life skills, organizational skills, but even technical skills if they so desire, to really have a centralized portal for them to have their learning laid out and then be able to monitor and trace that learning as they go through. And it just kind of shows you here what you have. You have a curated learning list. You have the ability to add your own content as well as third-party content, as well as many of you guys are aware of our LinkedIn Learning site, which has a ton of resources that can be assigned to users, as well as users can pull as well and assign to themselves to, again, give them that time to do their personal development, throughout their day. As well as you can see, it tightly integrates with Teams, so you can put that LinkedIn Learning site into Teams and allow it to be shared. And then you have the ability as a manager to assign training to users. All right. And again, the nice thing about this is it's all within Teams. So for you guys who have been adopting Teams, this brings everything under that, again, that central collaboration shell that your users are used to using. And the last is Viva Topics. So when you begin to learn and you begin to develop in your job, You can use Viva Topics and the AI engines that exist within the M365 platform to connect you to knowledge experts in the context of your work. So when you think about, for example, maybe you're working on something or somebody else who's working on that or who's an expert, the AI will be able to see that, be able to link it, and allow you to have that centralized portals to meet you people who work with your organization, be able to assist on your projects, and able to provide insight into your work. And this is just showing you here, for example, this is the channel. There's a project that I'm working on. It'll highlight the project. When I click on that project, it takes me to the project. It shows me all the people who are working on it. It suggests people who may also be working on this. It'll show the documents associated with that project. And then it actually has a nice Q&A section where people can put in questions, and then other people who are associated with this project can answer it. So again, a lot of that centralization, and it really does speak to the collaboration pieces of it. So when we look at working on projects, working on things across both, in the office and remote, these Viva utilities really help to really bring that collaboration piece together. It allows for these centralized process mechanisms for you to be able to effectively work together within the Teams platform. So one of the things we experience is what we call digital exhaustion. I know I experience this every day. By the end of the day, after being on the computer, having my meetings, doing my follow-up, and kind of not allowing myself to break between all these meetings, I'm exhausted. I literally can't think straight. I can't see straight. And this has been kind of the trend with the pandemic at the beginning. Now, what we've seen is that if you do allow yourself proper breaks, you properly organize your workday into both having buckets of time when you're collaborating, time when you have your quiet time when you're working on your projects, and you intermingle that with meetings, it actually allows you to not have this digital exhaustion. It also alleviates stress. I don't know if you've experienced this, but when I'm back to back to back to back, my stress level raises through the day because I'm going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. When I break, I tend to not feel as exhausted and not feel as frustrated because I'm taking that time between one task and the next task to allow me to process what I've just gone through and allow me to prepare for what I need to do next. So let's talk about places now. So as we return to workplace, there's some solutions that you may have already heard of, but we've been developing. So some of it is, for example, these Power Automate and Power Apps that we've created to allow people as they come into the office to be able to do things like attest to their health, be able to find flexible workspaces and schedule them. So one of the things that a lot of organizations are going to is a hot desking model. So instead of having a dedicated space for everybody, you have a shared space when people come into the office. So we've developed a lot of tools that allow you to do the screening, allow you to find a room, schedule a room, and then be able to check into the room once you're in the office. The other piece of what we have with Teams is the concept of how people meet. So we talked about a lot of the collaboration aspects, but how do people actually collaborate in real time? And what we've done is we've done a lot of work and continue to do a lot of work on making sure that the experience for the person who is remote as well as the person who's in office is very inclusive. So a lot of this you'll see in some of the videos that I'm going to show you here is both looking at the space at home and what we've done with some of our partners to develop some really neat camera technology and audio technology to really help the person at home as well as the person who may be in a room to have the most feature-rich and most immersive experience they can. We're doing a lot of reconfiguration to the meeting experience to allow key elements of the meeting to be laid out in such a way that you can see the person on video, but at the same time you can see the chat, you can see key tasks and stuff, presentation, without having one cover up the other. So when we look at the setup of a remote attendee, we want to make sure that they're inclusive. So we want to make sure that the room technology, which is how a lot of people will meet in the shared space in the office, matches the experience of someone who's remote. So essentially they feel included, they can easily collaborate with people who are at the office, and people at the office can see and effectively collaborate with people who are remote within the same meeting experience.
In the hybrid world of work, organizations need to embrace flexibility, empowering people to collaborate from anywhere. Microsoft Teams Rooms bridge the gap between in-person and remote attendees, ensuring everyone can be seen, heard, and be fully engaged. Teams Rooms are designed so even if you're working from home, you feel as included and as part of the meeting as those in the room. Connect with your team more comfortably, clearly, and naturally. Participate in the conversation and share reactions. Have your voice heard and communicate effectively. Collaborate on the same digital canvas as colleagues in the room. To deepen your connection with others in the meeting, personalize your home office with devices certified for Teams. Select from a range of accessories. Combine them with a plug-and-play integrated audio, video, and lighting solution. Or add a second display with a device dedicated to your calls and meetings. The audio and video technology in a Microsoft Teams room is designed for remote participants. Create even stronger connections with smart cameras that focus on the person speaking. An intelligent speaker that lets everyone know who is speaking in the room. And for spaces using a traditional whiteboard, use a content camera to make sure it can always be seen by everyone. Now when you're at home, you can have a seat at the table, be fully engaged, and able to contribute.
So what you saw there is some of the technology that exists today between both the user that sits at home as well as the user that is in the room. And you saw some advancements that are coming along around new AI capture cameras that allow for the person who is in a shared space to be focused on when they're speaking, as well as the ability when you're in a shared space to identify who's speaking for some of our transcription tools for the meeting experience. Going one step further, we're even going, you saw some of the things like Together Mode, the large gallery mode, which does a good job of immersing the person into the room space. But we're also doing a lot around enhancing the whole meeting layout, which we discussed earlier. And this is just a sample of within the room itself, some of the technology that exists to bring those room elements into the meeting.
In the hybrid world of work, organizations need to embrace flexibility, empowering people to collaborate from anywhere. Microsoft Teams Rooms bridge the gap between in-person and remote attendees, ensuring everyone can be seen, heard, and fully engaged, whether they are working in small, medium, or large meeting spaces. Small meeting rooms are designed for focused, in-person collaboration. To enhance these spaces and make meetings more inclusive for everyone, include a Teams panel to provide meeting space availability and information at a glance, a camera with a wide field of view so everyone in the room can be seen, a content camera to bring a traditional whiteboard into the meeting so even remote attendees can see it clearly at all times, and an intelligent speaker so everyone knows who said what in the meeting. Medium-sized rooms need to accommodate larger groups with more distance between attendees and the audio and video equipment. Bring together in-room and remote participants with a second large display where people and content can be seen clearly side by side, an auto-tracking camera that moves and zooms to frame all in-room participants in an optimized view, a discrete ceiling tile microphone that captures crisp audio from every corner of the room, and speakers at the front of the room that let you hear remote participants clearly from their direction. And finally, large rooms need to be capable of providing collaborative, inclusive experiences for even more attendees. A smart camera that can detect and track the active speaker and zoom in, bringing them into full view for remote participants. And an 85-inch Surface Hub 2S helps everyone brainstorm together on a shared digital canvas. No matter what size space, Microsoft Teams rooms are easy to use and flexible to meet your needs.
So what you saw there again is the flexibility of our Teams room system. So you saw there that you could go from a small huddle space to a large space. We have things like content cameras as well as the Surface Hub to allow for collaborative, rich collaboration, both on a traditional whiteboard as well as a digital whiteboard. And what these elements allow is, again, when somebody's in a room or a shared space and they're attending a meeting, they can very easily collaborate with those users who are remote, because everything, again, is running the Teams platform. The other piece is that the room systems are designed to be very user-friendly, as well as have the same capabilities as the Teams client as far as presenting, casting, those type of technologies to allow you to easily integrate into the room and not have to relearn a room every time you walk into it. And you have a lot of scalability as far as what you can add to the room to really make the room personalized for the space that it's in. This last video kind of shows where we're going to be going to later this year, early next year, as far as really changing the meeting room experience to, again, allow for a rich immersive experience, both for the at-home user as well as the room user, and really focus on things like spatial audio, being able to focus on the users on both sides, as well as laying out the meeting interface to really optimize space and the presentation and those key elements you want to look at when you're collaborating remotely.
Today's Microsoft Teams rooms bridge the meeting attendees, providing everyone high-quality, inclusive experiences. Going forward, these rooms will deliver more natural and immersive experiences for hybrid work. The focus room will evolve to connect in-person and remote attendees in a more unified experience, with a larger screen where interactions feel more natural as you sit face-to-face across from life-size remote colleagues, a camera placed at eye level to improve eye contact, spatial audio so you hear people's voices from their position on the screen, and to enrich real-time collaboration, meeting chat notes and actions will be at the forefront of all Teams rooms. Larger rooms with more attendees make it challenging for people working remotely to know who is present and who's talking. Teams rooms will deliver a meeting experience where everyone is fully represented and connections feel natural. We have reimagined the meeting room to bring people face-to-face with remote colleagues and unlock more space for people, content, and collaboration. Technology will fade to the background, with premium microphones hidden in the ceiling. Intelligent camera technology will bring in-room participants clearly into view through individual video streams. And spatial audio will help remote participants establish presence with a virtual seat in the room. All so that you have more authentic connections with everyone in the meeting. Our vision for meetings is about leveling the playing field for everyone, where remote and in-person attendees are represented equally and everyone can collaborate without compromise.
So when you look at the future of the meeting room, this is what we envision. So envision a space where people can equally see the people who are remote as well as the people who are in the actual space. We want to make sure that clearly when people raise their hand, when people have emoticons or are presenting, that it's clearly represented both remotely and in the in-office experience, as well as, again, highlight those key elements. So you'll see their chat being highlighted in the center of the space, the actual presentation, and then even an active task list. So again, does a great job of relaying out the interface so that it really focuses on the key contents of the meeting as well as the people who are participating in the meeting. As far as the way our room systems work, you have a lot of flexibility and configuration, so you can go as small as a all-in-one solution or a Surface Hub, all the way up to an 18 plus solution that has a lot of different components that you can add and build to build the space. And you saw that through the videos, is that there was a lot of flexibility to scale out. And again, you know, it all depends on the space, the sizing, as well as what you want to put in the space. But again, it's all built on the same Teams platform. There's no needing to essentially have a different platform to run all these. It'll run on the same Teams platform that you run on the desktop. And then as far as endpoints here, this is just some of the stuff that we have, and you can mix and match to build your solution, which is nice. So you can have, you know, different touch boards, different video boards, different panels, different in the ceiling mics, just depending on what you need. So you have a lot of flexibility there in picking the appropriate components for your solution. When we look at some of the things that are coming out here in the early next year, a lot of the stuff we're doing around intelligent AI cameras with advanced framing. So you see there a traditional view of a room, and then these are the new framing cameras we're coming out, which takes that traditional layout and breaks it up into individual boxes. So again, you can focus on, if you're remote, the users who are in room versus the space around them. With our Teams panels, which have actually been released, you have the ability to have a panel that sits outside the room, allows you to see actively when you walk up to the space if it's reserved, allows you actually to reserve the room if you need to. You also have the ability to build in third-party apps into it. So for example, you'll see there some things like if you were to have catering, you could call the catering and schedule catering. You can find nearby rooms if this room is booked. And then some neat things like the ability, for example, common issue you run into, you come up to your room is still being booked. You want to let people know that you're waiting for the room, but you don't want to disrupt the meeting. There's a knock feature that will allow you to hit that, you know, check into the room, and it lets the people in the room via a pop-up know that the next people to use the room are sitting outside and waiting for the room to free up. With our intelligent speakers, we have the ability to now use what's called a digital voice footprint, which allows the AI to identify people speaking in the room. So one of the challenges we've had is that when somebody's remote and people are talking, unless you recognize their voice, you don't know who's speaking. With these intelligent mics and speakers, they have the ability to match your voice to a digital footprint, which you upload and consent to on the Teams portal. And then when you're in a shared space and you're talking and you look at things like transcription or who's actively speaking, it'll actually use your name versus just using the room space name. One of the big announcements we made, and this is a future, but it's an interesting future because it's being talked a lot about, is the concept of metaverses. So ultimately, what we've made a big announcement at Ignite about is around the concept of taking what we call our Microsoft Mesh and allowing people to collaborate in a virtual space. Now, a lot of people say, okay, well, you know, what does this buy me? What would be the advantage of this? Well, as people begin to collaborate more and more, instead of meeting just in a traditional meeting space, which people are used to, and maybe some people aren't comfortable going on video, they can use things like avatars. They can actually use virtual spaces to collaborate and make it feel more immersive versus the traditional meeting, you know, over a camera or just meeting with a, you know, a traditional meeting space. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you briefly here a video of what that metaverse looks like and conceptually what that is. But this is something I know that a lot of organizations are starting to talk about, and Microsoft has an active plan to integrate this into Teams.
as the digital and physical worlds come together, we are creating an entirely new platform layer, which is the metaverse. In a sense, the metaverse enables us to embed computing into the real world and to embed the real world into computing, bringing real presence to any digital space. What's most important is that we are able to bring our humanity with us and choose how we want to experience this world and who we want to interact with. It's no longer just looking at a camera view of a factory floor. You can be on the floor. It's no longer just video conferencing with colleagues. You can be with them in the same room. Mesh for Microsoft Teams will allow you to connect with presence and have a shared immersive experience directly in Teams.
We've also created an incredible immersive space that's now seamlessly accessible directly through Teams. Why don't we go check it out?
Here we are, Jason, and your avatar looks awesome. Something that I really like is how freely you can move around and have face-to-face conversations.
That's exactly right. We've held more than 100 team gatherings in these immersive spaces where people can connect, learn, and collaborate because they're truly in the same place together.
The solution has been a game changer for onboarding about 100,000 people a year. And like many organizations, onboarding has been remote for the past 18 months. So bringing our new hires into this immersive environment fosters immediate and deeper connections. It transcends physical boundaries and helps individuals experience a culture in a very personal way. Our new hires meet many more people and grow their professional network much faster.
In IT, we're thrilled how easily we could unlock Mesh's capabilities through Teams. The integration with Microsoft 365 makes everything feel familiar. But on top of that, spatial audio makes everything sound just like it would in person. And I love seeing and hearing our colleagues collaborating and whiteboarding and using this space for productivity.
This doesn't just feel real, it is real. It's been exciting to see an idea become a reality in such a short time, enabling presence and connection that transcends location, keeps our culture vibrant wherever we're working, and levels the playing field to create equal and inclusive experiences.
The metaverse is not just transforming how we see the world, it's changing how all of us actively participate in it. And we can't wait to see what you build and how you bring people together with this technology.
So you can see there where that's truly embracing this concept of a new modern hybrid workplace. So the idea that people can be remote, people can be at the office, and they can collaborate in a unified space together. And that's the concept of the metaverse. And again, bringing those concepts that were at one time only existed into the physical world, into the computer world, into the virtual world, as well as bringing the virtual world into the real world. That's ultimately going to allow you, when you talk about group gatherings, when you're talking about people who maybe may never come back to the office or who work in a remote location outside, to be able to still have that ability to have that feeling and that ability to meet in person via this virtual world. So the last thing is processes. So this is part of the overall M365 story that we've told from the beginning. And this concept of not only taking, the people, the places, but even the business processes themselves and transforming them. So taking things that were traditionally embedded into specialized applications and specialized programs, bringing them into an environment like Teams, using things like Power Platform, Power Automate, Power BI, and Power Apps to automate a lot of these business processes that were done in person, is one of the key elements to taking and really adopting this hybrid work model. So not just about changing the way people work, but changing the way that organizations do business. And we have some key organizations here like Priority Bicycles, Hasbro, and American Airlines that have all adopted this hybrid work and this new business process transformation, have been able to successfully, even during the pandemic, really change the way they do their in-person business, while allowing them, again, to stay connected with both their customers and their employees.
Our Monopoly fans definitely keep us honest.
She actually flipped the board.
At Hasbro, we launch dozens of Monopoly games every year, and one thing that is consistent through all of those is testing. We did most of it at our headquarters, but when the pandemic hit, it was just kind of like, how are we going to do that?
Now we have testing through Teams.
It's enabled us to open up to the entire world.
Bonjour la famille. Different cultural backgrounds have a different understanding of a game, so you get more authentic feedback.
You rolled us down.
You see boards flipping, but you see also a lot of laughter.
We're getting insights that we didn't used to get, like, does all of this fit on a coffee table?
I think it makes us much more collaborative.
We were able to concept, develop, and launch a game entirely through Teams.
In half the time we used to take. Teams is a new way for us to look at how we go forward in the future.
So again, you can see there how an organization who traditionally had a very on-prem way of doing things embraced the remote hybrid work model and was able to get additional insight that they didn't have before, because they were actually able to take the testing to where the people were versus bringing them into a controlled environment. And you can even look at state and local government institutions, which do a lot of constituent interfacing and the ability to use these tools to have better reach out with those constituents, and instead of having them come into an office, being able to remotely work with them. So the last piece of this, when we look at the business, transforming the business itself, we also are mindful of the threat vectors that exist out there. So when you look at M365, which of course is what Teams sits on and what this hybrid work environment would exist in, there's a lot of thought put into, things like, emails, email interception, and how a lot of these bad actors and players get into our environments. So one of the things that Microsoft pushes, and you probably heard, is the zero trust architecture. So whether you're in the office, at home, or you're on a remote device, it's this concept of making sure that, we are properly auditing, properly securing that device to allow access to data. So essentially, with the zero trust architecture, you don't trust anything until you've validated it. And the nice thing about if you've used our architecture, we have MFA, conditional access, we have endpoint security. We have all these things that really help and build and secure the device to make sure that when people are accessing data, that they are only getting access to data they should have. They're not able to leak that data outside the protective perimeter, as well as that the device that they're working on is fully secured and has all the policies necessary to meet the compliance of accessing the data on that device. So there is some quick start guides. I will provide a copy of this presentation, which has this, but we have a hybrid work guide that goes through things like operations, human resources, IT and security, marketing and sales. So kind of give you an idea of, how do you adopt this hybrid work model based on Microsoft best principles and leveraging the M365 platform. We also have a hybrid workplace flexibility guide, which is a PDF that kind of discusses how you can work in a hybrid flexible work environment, especially with COVID-19. And then we have a great work lab community, which helps you go and understand how other organizations, as well as your organization, can develop best practices and principles around hybrid work. So this is just the beginning. When you look at the way you transform your organization and how you adapt to this hybrid work environment, the good news is if you are using M365, you're using Teams, Microsoft has made a massive investment to help you leverage these tools to build that hybrid work environment. And when you look at things like Microsoft Viva and our Microsoft security model, it also takes into consideration the well-being of your employees, as well as making sure that your employees are working and accessing data in a secure, zero trust environment. With that, I'll take the last few minutes here. If there's any questions or answers, any Q&A.
I had a question about the content on the Microsoft Viva Connections.
Mm-hmm.
Who creates that content?
So you're talking about when you say the content, are you talking about the learning? Are you talking about what's generated as far as the insights and stuff like that?
So there were screenshots of a phone app and a website for the Viva Connections, and there were a lot of pictures and but yes, also the learning.
So a lot of that content, a lot of it, I believe there's wizards to set that up, but the content is created by the administrators. So you lay out the content. There is some AI, like when we look at the insights and we look at some of those pieces, that's generated using our AI technology. But most of the stuff, as far as like the home screens and stuff like that, they have templates that you can use to set up and guide that information. And the same thing with learning. You can actually assign stuff as a manager and build that content library for your employees.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Doesn't appear so. Well, thanks, Angel. Thanks everyone for attending today. Appreciate your attendance, and we look forward to seeing you next month as we talk about compliance in Office 365. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.